Thanks, Nina. I guess I will kick off and then turn the floor over to the featured attraction this evening. Topaz Smith has a really dynamite story and a very interesting backstory. So I think we'll hopefully we'll learn a lot about her travels, both literal as well as the business travels in terms of bringing her her model to bear and. Um, we got a great deal out of the discussion. So, first off, I'll mention sort of briefly. Again, as Nita mentioned, my name is Andrew Flam. I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center at PACE. We're part of the Lubin School, and our focus is providing free one-on-one assistance and also a wide range of training sessions to entrepreneurs looking to either expand, launch, or formalize their business ventures. Everything we do is offered at no cost, and we work with both folks within the PACE community as well as the general public. We are staffed by a team of really dynamite full-time business advisors, and what they do day in, day out is really working with entrepreneurs, helping them, go through, and address pain points they may. It's access to financing, working through marketing strategies, identifying key market data that can help them, whether it's developing a business plan or identifying business development opportunities, procurement opportunities, and obviously over the last several months, dealing with revisiting their business models post-COVID. And I think that part of the discussion, or at least my initial discussions with Topaz, were really fascinating. He's been able to amend, who she is and what her business is all about post-COVID. So we'll certainly get to that as part of our discussion this evening. I'll first sort of mention, I guess I put a couple of items in the chat. If you are interested in either pursuing your own business venture, or maybe you've launched a business while you are at school, we'd be more than happy to meet with you. We have, as I said, our full-time business advisors who are working with entrepreneurs, doing virtual one-on-one sessions with them on a daily basis. So if you're interested, I did include a quick link in the chat through which you go to. You click there. It takes 2-3 minutes to fill out. If you have any questions, obviously you can send info or email to us as well. I did include also our website and email address in the chat. So if you want to find out more about our programs and other activities that we're up to, you certainly can reach out that way. So that's my brief plug for the who we are and what we do. But obviously the focus this evening, I'm really looking forward to the discussion with Topaz today. I wanted to at least provide a brief description of who she is and what she does before turning the floor over to her, and then we'll go back and forth in terms of some of the things that I thought were particularly insightful in terms of her experience and background in terms of bringing her business to where she is today. So to get started, I guess I'll say in terms of an intro, Topaz Smith is the founder of Noble. It's an eco-tourism company that curates immersive experiences for the socially conscious traveler. And Noble believes in sustaining local markets through travel and seeks ways to access resource-filled communities lacking exposure to the broader tourism market. I think some of the things that we'll talk about tonight in terms of her connectivity to local markets and bringing economic opportunity to underserved areas, I think is really inspiring stuff, and it's a great business model to follow. And obviously, as we discussed earlier, I think Nina touched on as a PACE graduate. So we're delighted to have her and look forward to the discussion. So Topaz, I guess I'll turn it over to you for a few moments if you want to say some few words, and then we'll get into some of the Q&A and discussions.
Sure. So thank you once again for inviting me to talk about my business and my entrepreneurial journey. I definitely am so excited to be here tonight to share with you a bit more about myself and why I decided to create this business. A lot of it happened by happenstance, where I fell into these situations where I was probably the only Black woman in the room, and I wanted an experience that could give me diverse perspectives, and I couldn't find that. And so I decided to create a platform that could allow a much more diverse perspective as you travel, giving travelers who want that experience much more authentic ways of viewing cities, exploring subcultures and cultural fusions that are around you, but sometimes hard to find.
Great. So I mean, with that business model in mind, I feel like, I guess, things that were kind of impactful for me in terms of our discussion when we first got a chance to kind of meet up and talk through kind of your experience. Maybe let's start with kind of some of your pre-collegiate experiences. I mean, you've had, really the great benefit of having so much exposure to kind of wide ranges of our world. And I feel like, clearly that was so impactful in terms of some of your kind of early thoughts in terms of ultimately what will become your business model. Maybe talk a bit about how that all started for you.
Sure. So I began I think it all began because my parents are immigrants, and they were very stern on education, and so they put me in a private school that was internationally focused. And so each year we went to a different country, we studied a different language, and we learned about the history and the culture of countries outside of the U.S. So for the first year, we went to Wales and England. Do not call a Welsh person English. We went to Spain and Portugal. We drove from the Algarve into Sevilla. And the next year we went to Brazil. The following year we did Japan, and the last year was South Africa. And so, speaking Portuguese, learning French, being immersed in culture from a very young age. I mean, I always had a love for travel, a love for different ethnicities. And so I always saw the value in diverse perspectives. And that I definitely think pushed me to look into schools that offered study abroad programs. The first program that I wanted to go to was actually in Egypt. I wanted to study abroad there, and the Arab Spring happened that year. And so I had to change that destination, and I decided to go to Rome. And I traveled every weekend, almost every weekend rather. I still traveled throughout Italy, and I experienced cultures that, I knew of before, and some that I didn't. I went to Croatia and Switzerland and, Germany. So it was just seeing the diversity there and experiencing, something that was transformative, I feel, trying to get my hair done in a predominantly Italian area, because at the time I lived in Trastevere, which is by the Tiber, and really heavily Italian. And so figuring out how to get my hair done, I had to stalk a girl on the bus, literally, to find that space where, there were Nigerian Italians that could do my hair. And so seeing the lack of, businesses online, I couldn't find them because they were so insular, pushed me to create a platform that could help people, from diverse backgrounds be able to connect with others like themselves who share certain experiences or perspectives a little bit more easily. So.
And the language and culture is something that kind of, flows through in so many of your experiences, and then ultimately in the business launch as well.
Yes.
And was curious, I guess, as a transitional point, maybe if you could talk a bit about, I know that you said that the PACE study abroad program was just so kind of impactful for you. And I think that obviously, for a shout out for Lubin in terms of Professor Claudia Green, you had mentioned, I guess, that you really got much out of that program. Maybe if you could talk a bit about that.
Sure. So Professor Claudia Green, Dean of the Hospitality Program, she actually told me upon coming back from Europe about a internship program at Albergo Le Serenuse in Positano in the Amalfi Coast. And I was thrilled. Who doesn't want to go to the Amalfi Coast? I had gone there already, living in Rome for a weekend trip, and I was like, that's definitely an option. And so I pursued it, and I ended up living there and working at a 5-star hotel with a Michelin star restaurant. And that was my first experience in the hospitality world. And I learned, how to be, impeccable at customer service. I mean, the phone can't ring more than once, and just working my way around the hotel to different departments, kind of shadowing the the director of the hotel as well, who's has been in the hospitality world for a very long time because it's a family-run hotel, and one of the finest in Positano, to be honest. And that experience really helped me realize how much business and the environment intersect, especially within hospitality. And so after that internship, I ended up doing the Brazil trip, where we went and surveyed businesses in Ilha Grande, which is an island off the coast of Rio de Janeiro, and Paraty, where it's on the coast, close to Rio, but not. But ultimately, that perspective showed me more about community-based tourism. So here I had a 5-star experience in the Amalfi Coast, and then I had a more of an eco-tourism-based, community-based tourism perspective. And so I decided to marry the two because I really, really liked the community-based tourism, but I know that customer service is very important in hospitality. And so that's another reason why I decided to create the platform, because I really wanted to amplify the voices of communities that have such amazing value, but sometimes just don't know how to market their product. And many times the travel and tourism industry might not know about their products. So that's kind of what also led me to create Ennoble.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important point, because there are, I think what your business model ultimately became was really all about finding these experiences in places where folks either just didn't have the capacity or understanding in terms of how to be able to generate this awareness, to be able to get, folks from further afield to be able to experience kind of things that you did.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a bit about some of kind of the initial experiences that might kind of fit this criteria that kind of started to translate into potential itinerary items for you.
Sure. And so, one thing that I do want to state is more of the name, because a lot of people, they talk about, or they hear about, they see the word ennoble and they're like, what does that even mean? So ennoble means to give nobility to. It literally means to structurally elevate. And that's what the business does. It creates opportunities to show the value of communities that don't necessarily have the mic at all times. And, a lot of this was, once again, happenstance, where I would go to a country and, for example, going to Peru, I decided to backpack Peru right before I went for my master's degree in environmental policy at the New School. And I was mistaken as an Afro-Peruvian. And I had never known that Afro-Peruvians even existed, because, when you think about Peru, you think about Machu Picchu, you think about Incas and Quechua culture. And so I was in a cab and this guy kept on asking me where I was from. And I, said Estados Unidos. And he was just like, no, you're from Chincha. And I just was completely dumbfounded. I didn't know what Chincha was. And he was getting very aggressive. He was just like, you're from Chincha. And I said, you don't say, I don't know, what Chincha is. And ultimately I had to declare that I was from Chincha, and then he was screaming. He said, Chincha, yes, Chincha. And that's when I found out about, the huge Afro-Peruvian community existing in Chincha, but also in Lima. And that was something that really stood out to me, because the culture that I experienced in Chincha and Guayabo and El Carmen, where you found a lot of Afro-Peruvians, was completely different from Lima and Cusco. And a lot of people, when they go to Peru, they're looking specifically to Lima and Cusco. So I wanted to create a product that would diversify the perspective of people going to Peru, because I was living there and I was backpacking the Galapagos in Peru. And, the experiences that I had were just amazing. The food, caripolca, for example, it's a stew that's just out of this world. The dance, zapateo, that's found in Afro-Peruvian cultures and communities only. And so I wanted to really speak to, I wanted to really speak to the differences that exist, the Japanese Peruvian culture, so allowing people much more products and the ability to travel much more within a country and culturally in, one country per se. So
Mhm.
really they're going to Peru, but they're also going to Africa. They're also going to, Japan, seeing those subcultures and experiencing the cultural fusions there.
Right. So, I mean, these cultural fusions are, sort of are so central to kind of your experiences.
Yes.
The thing that I think struck me from our earlier discussions, I think, were about kind of how you were able to convey these sorts of experiences and your use of social media in terms of helping identify initial clients. And love to kind of transition, sort of think about with this business model in mind, starting to think about kind of, hey, you've got this great idea, you've got these experiences you want to share with prospective clients. How were you first able to kind of go through, maybe if you could talk a bit about the monetizing of the idea?
Sure. So the initial clients, a lot of it happened, through talking to family and friends. A lot of people knew that I traveled, and I was one to just go backpack Morocco. And it was like, when you're going next time, I want to go, or you do it for me. And so that's kind of how it happened. It was, just an interest, and people saw that it was fun. Developing the business model is interesting because, a lot of people think that they can just Google this, right? You can go online, you can figure it out yourself. And you can do that. You can try and do that. But a lot of this is in person. A lot of this is, you going to a country, you meeting people, people telling you about this word of mouth, because a lot of communities are insular, a lot. And so I created the business model in order to sell the itineraries, you know, um, and keep a lot of the profits for the people on the ground. A lot of times you're seeing tourism agencies coming in, selling a product for, tens of thousands of dollars and leaving the local economies with maybe five. Or, a tourist that just doesn't know better, staying at a hotel for $400 and then like going to a local community and buying a necklace for five. So I was very specific to create a radical transparency model where clients are able to see that this is a certain amount of percentage of the money that will be staying with the local community to create the capacity to develop further tourism products in the future. And I think one of the things that, or one of the experiences that helped me create that thought process was my experience living in Ethiopia. During my graduate degree, I worked in Ethiopia. I wrote a grant for an ecocultural center in the southern portion of Ethiopia, which a lot of the times gets overlooked. And by doing that, we created income diversification for the local people because they were being kicked off the land due to politics. And so that really showed me how much value can be put out from the community and how much they can retain from it to create a better life for themselves as well as their children.
Yeah, I mean, I love, and I think one of the radical transparency, I think is so important in terms of being able to bridge that gap and generate economic opportunity in these local small businesses. Obviously, our focus as a center is more New York centric, but clearly being able to look at places where small businesses and entrepreneurs need that leg up and need that opportunity to be able to connect them with that. I think there's so much to be said for that. Well, with that in mind, I guess I'm curious, as you travel and maybe talk a bit about some of the relationship building with, these providers, sort of talking about, maybe they're used to getting, pennies on the dollar or not being, recognized or noticed at all. How do you work to kind of build the trust with new providers to be able to make sure you have these range of experiences for perspective?
Sure. So the trust comes from the constant communication, right? Being able to reach out to them, seeing how they are, how COVID is affecting them, and just understanding that being aware of the humanness between both of us. I think sometimes when you make it too transactional, people don't trust you. And so being able to speak directly to the value that they have, showing them, other products in the tourism market similar to theirs, and why they too deserve a moment to shine. And I think that helps them understand the value that they have within themselves. But it's 2020. People are aware that they're valuable, right? Because of so much technology and realizing how easy they have access to the outside world. But it's really about being able to market to Westerners using certain type of jargon, using certain types of marketing strategies. That's something that they don't have a hold of. And so to be able to use my platform as well as my connections and my network, it helps them push forward in their attempts to even get out in the outside world with skills that they might not have. So I think them seeing certain spaces that I've held or been in, and understanding the networks that I have access to, helps them say, you know what, maybe we should work with you. You get it, because of your experiences and your past and the present, or the future that you see as for your company. We think that we should work with you.
Mm-hmm. And some of the examples you provided, I think, in our discussion, were thinking about, I guess, a couple of things that kind of stuck out in my mind, were sort of pottery classes or,
Yes.
Glamping sites. I mean, these
Yes.
are things that are, clearly not, going to the Hilton, let's say. So if it becomes kind of a way to really fully appreciate kind of things that are happening in a local community and engaging entrepreneurs in ways and hopefully connecting them with new markets that they may not have been able to tackle themselves.
Sure. Yeah. I totally agree. And these things are, focused on also rural tourism. And so being in Peru, I was with a lot of different, people. I actually, the first time I went to Peru, I was living on a coffee farm on the Inca Trail in.
I always love his quote. I can't stop, don't stop.
I hiked for like 30 minutes. Oh, no, actually, it was more than 30 minutes to the top of the mountain with my backpack, and I didn't speak Quechua, which is predominantly what they spoke. And so a lot of it was, just connecting with people, and like, once again, just like seeing who lived in the area, going to local cafes, hanging out at different events that were in the city and, meeting people organically. And so a lot of those relationships, were created from grassroots experiences. It was just like really reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'm here, you're here. How can we help each other and have a conversation?
Right. So with these experiences in mind, without giving away the special sauce, so to speak, maybe talk a bit about how you go ahead and like create an itinerary for new clients. I think that
Sure.
that would be helpful to understand.
Yeah. So the ways in which I go about doing that, it's really personalized. So it's finding out what they like to do. People want to go abroad, but they also they don't want to feel like a tourist. And so when I hear that, I'm like, okay, you really want the real deal. Obviously, you want to feel safe, but I know that means local food. I know that means local activities, things that, people on the ground are immersed in. And one thing that I do is I go to all of the countries that I sell. And so I have contacts in those spaces. And so I have conversations with these people. And I also do a lot of research on the activities that are there. And just by immersing myself in it, I can understand what product and what activities will sell to clients, because if I enjoyed it and a lot of them are reiterating the things that I enjoy, they'll enjoy it as well.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Would love to kind of transition a little bit and sort of think about, as we sort of touched on, with COVID hitting and, international tourism, coming to a standstill and really all of our worlds getting, so much more limited and small. Was curious, I guess, would love to kind of, think about, and we had some initial discussions, you and Nina and I about some of your pivot to virtual experiences and thoughts about domestic activities, some of these short-term, hopefully short-term arrangements in terms of other kind of business activities that your model could address. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the thoughts that you have and some of the new kind of experiences you've identified.
Sure. So, COVID has hit a lot of people in ways. Some people have made a lot of money from COVID. Some people have not. Some people have industries that have completely plummeted, like the hospitality industry, unfortunately. But pivoting is something that an entrepreneur has to do. And so I looked at COVID and I said, okay, well, I know that one of the products that we have is a slow tourism product, which is basically staying in one area for a longer period of time to understand more about the cultures that exist there, and the ones that sometimes are overlooked. And so I created with interns, I created a database that basically allows you to travel internationally within the city of New York. And so you can do Senegal for the day. You can do anything from an ethnic grocery store, creating your own food, to a cultural restaurant where you can find locals, to a cultural center where you can kind of immerse yourself in the history and culture. So people who aren't able to travel to, international countries and spaces, they can have some of those experiences right here in New York City, seeing that it's so culturally diverse. Another thing that I did that was further down the pipeline was to create a cultural curriculum. And this is all under Ennoble's ecosystem. This was something that I wanted to create further down the line when I was able to roll out the Ennoble Foundation, which ultimately will serve as a space for urban city kids to learn more about cultures that they were not, or they really don't have access to because of so many constraints and hurdles and socioeconomic problems that they're faced with. So I wanted to, have students in the city of New York be able to learn about Egypt from a Nubian perspective, and Cabo Verde and the Afro-Portuguese diaspora and the Moluccans, Javanese and Papua New Guinea people in the Netherlands. And so I created a curriculum that can teach them, the ways in which they can see themselves in those spaces, but also help them learn about these cultures that exist globally that sometimes they won't have, that they right now don't have, access to. One more thing that I did was interview cultural representatives here in New York so that people can see these places are open. How do we support local businesses during this time safely? So I interviewed an Austrian chef in Brooklyn and a Sikh religious center in Queens, and Dominican Republic and French cultural fusion cafe in the Bronx. And so these are some of the examples where, I went out to show how we can be culturally immersed right now, because a lot of people have an itch for travel, but really just don't know how to go about, fixing that itch. And so those are three of the ways that, I've been working during COVID to stay culturally relevant and be able to work and allow people to be more culturally focused rather than siloed and polarized sometimes during this political climate. So those are some of the pivots that I've done. But I've also started developing a sales cycle, post-COVID, so that when folks are ready to travel, we stay top of mind and they're aware of the services that we offer, because a lot of people, they're not going to want to go to crowded locations after this. They're really going to seek things that are different. And so we're finding ways to put ourselves out there to show them that we have those potential offerings when they're ready.
Yeah. I mean, your point in terms of the virtual experiences and kind of, be local but experience global, I think is something that is special about New York City. I mean, and I guess it's really a joy to be here and be able to kind of take advantage of those things. So
Totally.
anything we can do to kind of, shine a spotlight on those type of opportunities is terrific. Would love to kind of, think further about, I guess you were touching about, when folks are starting to envision where they're going next, hopefully, next year, or I guess if not sooner, I guess are thinking about, are there new locations or new partnerships, collaborations that you're particularly excited about or kind of places that you'd like to be able to start to build into some of your business model, into some of your itinerary options?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm working on partnerships all the time. It's like, how do we allow people to see that we're trying to amplify their voices, and not in a way where we're trying to take over it all, or, lessen anything about them, but we really just want to be able to diversify the conversation when it comes to travel. So, Cabo Verde, that's a Afro-Portuguese diaspora that we're always trying to speak further on. The Netherlands, the Moroccan community there, that's Javanese and Papua New Guinea. Peru, once again, the Afro-Peruvian and Japanese-Peruvian diasporas, as well as Quechua people. And Sao Tome and Principe, which is also Afro-Portuguese, that has a lot of surfing and a lot of arts. So they have a theater experience called Ticholi, which is, just something that they've practiced for centuries. And so it's like, if you're into the arts, why not do that on your vacation, where you can kind of be immersed in a different way of displaying theater that's so old, but still so new to you. And so we're always looking for ways to experience other viewpoints, and shine a light on, even if it's a popular destination, shining a light on those communities that exist there that people just aren't wary of. Rome is always close to my heart, so I'm definitely working on Rome, where there's a huge Ghanaian and Afro-Ghanaian population, as well as Afro-Nigerian and Afro-Chinese. So I'm not Afro-Chinese, sorry, Italian Chinese. And so these are some of the spaces that I'm looking to create more or partnerships with, and also be able to sell that, so that people are able to really look at countries differently and appreciate all of the value that's there.
Got it. I'm expecting and thinking there are, before we start to get closer to a closing, I guess I'd love to sort of think about, I imagine we have a number of entrepreneurs that are joining us this evening. Are there any kind of final thoughts that you have in terms of lessons learned, or as in terms of your business launch, things you might have intended to focus on sooner, or things that you felt like took up too much of your time initially that maybe could have been pushed to the back burner? Things that I guess food for thought for some of the folks tonight.
Yeah, sure. Advice as an entrepreneur, you're constantly just trying to do everything. And so it's like, being very strategic is what helps. It's like, what is the reason why I'm focused on this particular part of the day, or part of the project, or the work that I'm doing. So for example, I'll be doing a marketing plan, right? And I'm like, why am I doing this marketing plan? It's like being able to have those reasons so that you're able to execute in a way that gets you to the final portion of whatever you're doing. I think sometimes, you're so focused on so many different aspects of the entrepreneurial journey. You have to have the website. You have to have, this marketing plan. You have to have the social media. You have to have, there's so much that's coming at you at once, but being able to be strategic about, what it is that, you need, and what it is that needs to be executed will help you be much more focused on getting there. Another thing is just being able to go to events and being able to put yourself in spaces where you find other entrepreneurs. I found that very, very helpful because entrepreneurs are out there and they're going through similar issues like me and like people on this call. And so just being able to be around like-minded individuals is always helpful, because they're ready to share resources and you're ready to share resources. And so just collaborating with people of like-mindedness is always amazing. And that's something that I would definitely say, other entrepreneurs should always try to do. And I know that COVID has also, cut a lot of those experiences, for events and these things have gone online, so it's about finding out, what app that's recent, researching, the latest entrepreneurship group on meetup.com and really trying to chase. I'd say, those spaces that you know that like-minded people will be there, and that's helpful.
Right. Yeah, I think, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think, I mean, the networking aspect of it, regardless of whether you're a new business or kind of an existing venture trying to find new partnerships, new procurement opportunities, whatever it may be, I think putting yourself out there, not always the easiest thing to do, and in particular, kind of finding, where those sensible places are, in this time of Zoom and otherwise is challenging, but I think is certainly a point well taken. The other thing that I would kind of point to, and to your first point, I think, in terms of how to strategize about how to, most effectively spend your time. I mean, it's so crucial, I think, for a business owner to be able to kind of get their arms around that. And it's a nice transitional kind of thought for me in terms of being able to also focus on maybe the last topic I had in mind before we switch over to Nina, maybe for some Q&A, is sort of thinking about internships. There are, I would imagine, a number of students that are on the call today. Topaz, maybe talk about, intern roles, things that you've experienced kind of both yourself as well as kind of the needs of your own business.
Sure.
Because oftentimes entrepreneurs, we find you're trying to, be a multiple of yourself. You want to be, marketing with, you want to create new products, you want to be able to develop new relationships, and you can only be in one place at one time. So being able to think about how to identify, talented folks to be able to support those efforts, I think is certainly that we're always interested in, and obviously making those connections to the university is always it. So any thoughts on that, Topaz?
Sure. So when I was at Pace, I interned at a lot of different places. I started out at Housing Works. I ended up, interning in the Amalfi Coast. I interned in at the Guildhall Hotel, close to Pace University, Force Brand. So I had a lot of different perspectives. I did marketing and business development internships. I did hospitality. I did operations. And so those definitely helped me understand more of how businesses run. And so they definitely have impacted how I run my business and how, I'm thinking about, helping other interns for Noble build their resume and build their skill set. In terms of internships, I have internships available online, content creation, digital marketing, and sales, and video internships. And so I think that, when you're looking at internships, especially as an entrepreneur with an entrepreneurial mindset, it's best to, work with a startup. It's best to see, hands-on how a business really runs, and to get that experience from, early in your schooling helps you not only in your classes, but also helps you think about what's next and how do I set myself up in the best way possible in order to, be successful in my future endeavors. And so right now we have internships available. I'm happy to speak to anybody that's interested, but I definitely would say interning is crucial to understanding how to move forward, with your degree and what your career will look like. So.
And we're always keen to see, PACE folks, students land with PACE grads. So this is, your opportunity for networking and connecting and kind of sort of seeing where, PACE's, talented graduates have gone on to be able to, land and launch some really interesting stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I left some time for Q&A. So I think I will pause there. And Topaz, thank you so much for walking us through your experience and kind of all the terrific things you've done so far.
Thank you.
Nina, I think I'll turn it over to you for Q&A for the moment.
Oh, okay. We have a question. Where will you travel to next, or when you can for the first time?
I'm going to Cabo Verde in Sao Tome.
Cool. I don't know where that is.
So Cabo Verde is off the coast of Senegal, and Sao Tome is off the coast of Gabon. So both off the coast of Africa.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Topaz? Just reading them from the chat box.
Topaz, do you have any internships that are any live links that you'd like to add, I guess, in terms of opportunities, or I guess you can share that with Nina offline and she could distribute them to the attendees afterwards.
Sure. Yes, I do.
I guess you're on the phone, so it may not be as easy right now logistically. Maybe it's easier offline then.
Yeah, I have links. I sent Nina internships.
Yeah.
I sent her the internship description, so I think you can put that in the chat box, or
Yeah, I'll pop
you can
it.
also just send that to the students
Awesome.
separately. Yeah, I mean, once I could just briefly go over some of the internships right now. We have a content creation internship, which is focused on, creating information for people to know what we do and why, and how we do it. We have the video internship, which is focused on videos and editing. I do a lot of videoing, obviously, because people want to see this. This is travel. They want to see why this place is different, what's exciting about it. How authentic it is. Who are these people that they're going to? Is it safe? And so that would help, an intern that's interested in editing and really storytelling through visuals, with their skills. There's also the marketing and sales, being able to increase revenue, putting it out there in a way that you can gather clients, and be able to feed people with information to get them to join and be a part of the Ennoble experience. There's also a I think is that it? There's digital marketing, which is different. And that's focused mainly on just honing in on that digital marketing skill, and being able to push, create sales funnels, just focusing really on just telling the story online, and being able to use tech and SEO and all these different things to get us in front of people. So.
And we do have a couple more questions now.
Sure.
How long did it take you to really get your business off the ground?
Years. This is something that you're in for the long haul. Entrepreneurship it can be grueling, but if you're passionate about it, that's what keeps you staying in the game. I would say, I started off, doing this in like 2017. I was like, okay, this is a business, but I don't know, because people are saying that they're going to Google it. So it really took a couple of years to like really gain confidence and push myself to create this as an establishment and be able to be successful and tell people, like, these are the opportunities. This is why your impact is important. And this is why traveling differently matters. So.
And I would add, I guess, in terms of the clients and the small businesses that we work with, I mean, entrepreneurs, it takes time, and, you may have to refresh your business model, sort of change and sort of think about, as you get feedback, from, folks that you're first sharing it with, to be able to get that out there. So whether you are kind of all, both feet in, as it were, and kind of launching and your business is out there, or you're doing it as a side hustle, which is the perspective of quite a large percentage of the folks we work with. You may have a day job, or you may have kind of you may be in school full time, but you have this burning passion, you have this great idea you want to bring to the market. Just be patient with it, but understand kind of the process and the things you want to be able to make sure you tackle to bring that out there successfully.
Yeah, I agree.
What has been the biggest risk you've taken in your career so far?
I was working at the United Nations before I decided to go full-fledged. And so being able to, I think the risk was transitioning into this business full-time. That's one of the biggest risks, I'd say.
And I think you did touch on this, but do you have plans on expanding your business to different countries?
Yes, totally, 100%. A lot of the times, as an entrepreneur, you need to focus on doing things well, and you need to be an expert in a certain area so that can continue to grow. And so I decided to, focus on these 4 places because of my connections there. Not saying I don't have connections in other countries, but my connections there and just knowing how the differential, how different it is, to sell this product. Not everyone is like, oh, we're focused on going to Cape Verde and Sao Tome. That's something that people are normally like, what are you talking about? And then even just like talking about, the Netherlands and the diversity there, as well as Peru. So having those experiences there, having, people in those spaces, I decided to go with those 4 countries because I knew that they would spark interest. 2 of them are pretty familiar to people and 2 of them aren't. So that's why I focused on that. But I do plan to expand to Italy, especially with the slow tourism product that we have. That's focused mainly on cities. So doing the database for New York City, where people come in and they might go to Times Square and think that they saw New York and have no idea what they just saw. That's not New York. But even Paris, I frequented Paris a lot living in Rome, and I also have a lot of contacts there. Same thing for London, and we want to do the same thing for Rome. So focusing on, major cities, creating opportunities for people to dive into these subcultures, because a lot of these places are stopovers. A lot of these places, people, have like 5 hours or 6 hours to see, but then they're Googling something and that's not, they're Googling something authentic. They get to a restaurant and it's not authentic. So it's like, how do you create those spaces where you have limited time, but you don't know where to go because you just finished at the Eiffel and you're trying to eat in the 7th arrondissement and that's not where you eat, So it's creating a simpler way for people to experience cultures in cities, but also about the countries. We're definitely, looking to expand those offerings as well.
And I think you were spot on in terms of, not kind of spreading yourself out too much. You want to, as an entrepreneur, when you're launching your business, do what you're doing well before you kind of tackle new markets. Otherwise, you're going to kind of set yourself up for you kind of trying to kind of juggle too many things simultaneously. Once you have the infrastructure, once you have kind of a successful product or service, wherever you're offering, at that point, that would be the time to be able to expand. And Topaz is handling it in a strategic and kind of smart way, I think.
We have one more question. So Jill says she has a similar background to you. She has immigrant parents, extensive traveling, speaks 3 languages. She now works for the UN in Mali. And she wants to know, how long does it take you to develop a package for each country, and what UN agency did you work for?
It takes, I don't know. I mean, these packages have been created already. So, but personalizing it, that could take like a week, being able to speak to the person and develop it. And obviously there's like certain restrictions around, the changes that can happen in that time frame. But I worked for the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which handles the SDGs, which is the Sustainable Development Goals that, a lot of, sustainability is focused on when it comes to, being in understanding sustainability as large as the conversation is. That's what it focuses on. So that's where I worked. Yes.
Cool. Okay. Does anyone have any more questions? No. Okay. So Topaz did send me a link to the interns page. I can't copy and paste it into the chat, but I'm going to give it to career services and have them put it up on their page so that it can get some good traction with them. So look for it there. And yeah, thank you so much, Topaz. This is a really great conversation. Thank you to Andrew. We've recorded the conversation, so we're going to put it online on the alumni virtual events section of the webpage as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.